2 years ago when our new board was formed. We didn't have people filling in the spots. We didn't really have a program person. We didn't have a treasurer part of the time. We didn't have a secretary part of the time. So the board has really done a great job building up the chapter in these last 2 years. And this year, I think, has been our best year, despite the pandemic. When we had our state meeting, the state recognized the fact that we had the largest percentage growth of a chapter. We had 38% growth. We have over 100 memberships now and over 130 members. So that's really good. We also got recognized for using MailChimp. Lynn Yankee is using MailChimp in newsletters and communicating with the other members. We were able to have several plant rescues at Slough River Walk. I'd like to thank the City of Columbia Park Rangers for allowing us to come and rescue as many plants as we could. And they're really tearing up the area now. So I'm glad we got as many as we did before we started tearing up. Of course, Bob did a great job with the programs. We had a program every single meeting, and we had a great field trip to Congaree Bluffs. And to top off our year, I think what it made it the best year was that we had a plant sale. It was the first one since I've been a member. We had plant swaps when I first joined, but no plant sale. So the committee, Megan heading it up, and Phil and Rita and Valerie and Trish and myself, I think, was the whole committee. And we worked well together. We didn't really know what we were doing, but it turned out well. So now we know what we were doing, and I think if we have one in the spring, it's going to be smoother and probably better. So if Hollis would like to say anything, being the vice president, you don't have to, but if you have something to say, you can say it.
The only thing I'd want to say is that, thank you, Bill, for doing an excellent job leading this chapter. And sorry to see you go, but I know Bob's going to do a great job.
He is.
And
Bill's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm not dying.
No, I mean, but
Yeah.
you've led us very well, and particularly in the last few years. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, thanks. Betsy, you have anything you want to say?
No, thank you.
Good. Phil, we're going to jump over Phil for right now. Is Don McInnes online?
Yeah,
I had to unmute. As the chapter representative, I want to point out that the state board and a subcommittee thereof has a project in revamping the website for the state organization, and that should be happening over the next few months. Trish is in charge of one of the sections of it, so if you want to get involved with doing some proofreading or some writing, talk to me or talk to Trish, and we'll point you in the right direction for that. And look for a new website, revamping probably late spring.
Good, thanks. And you were online when I mentioned that you were one of the founding leaders of the group.
You and Marigold at least predated me, because I wasn't there. There had been one or two meetings before I was on the scene.
That's good, but you were always there, and I really appreciate it. Okay, now let's see. We have we'll skip Bob Temper. Oh, go ahead, Bob. Anything you want to say as program person?
Well, I would like to thank everybody who contributed ideas and assistance in putting together programs for this year, and certainly would want to thank all of our presenters, including the folks who will be presenting tonight, members of our chapter. So it's always nice to have presentations from within the chapter. We've got some, we're working on some exciting programs for the upcoming year. I would like to encourage anyone who has ideas about things that they would like to hear or see to consider joining the program committee. We don't have a formal committee right now, but it would be great. It would be great to have an official working committee, but happy to entertain thoughts and ideas for programs that you'd like to see, and encourage you to get involved that way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Either of the Parkers, Clay or Bailey, have anything to say?
I don't think so.
Okay. Lynn, is Lynn Yankee online?
Yeah, hey, I'm here.
Anything you'd like to say?
Well, I want to second Hollis and everybody for kudos to you, Bill, because those of us doing committee work on do the newsletter. Cannot imagine when it was basically, you know, you, Marigold and Dawn doing everything. And thank you for leading this group, because it was at the plant sale and the enormous amount of energy that I realized, wow, we have a lot of members. We have a lot of people who know about this group, and thanks for keeping it going all those years. And yes, I want to encourage lots of people to get involved and join a committee and be part of it, because it's a lot cooler when you do.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for the newsletter and the using MailChimp.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that the board may be doing. We are considering redoing the bylaws and splitting the program and field trip committees and the newsletter and the publicity committee, adding an education committee, a project committee, a membership committee. We have so many members who have so much talent and have expressed interest in doing PowerPoints or developing educational materials, doing plant propagation, plant rescues. And so if we were to expand the board, the committees, that's more opportunity for people to join in. And the more people join in, I think the better the organization will be. That's why we're doing so well now, I think, is because we finally got our board positions filled and we get more people with better ideas. And I'd really like to thank, when we did the plant sale, the committee did a great job, but I was really amazed at the number of members that volunteered to be there, to take money and to help with the plants. And volunteers did a great job, and members showed up and bought the plants. So I was really pleased. I'm hoping that when the pandemic dies down, that this summer maybe we'll have a nice picnic at a park or somewhere where we can all actually meet and see each other, like we did at the plant sale. Is Megan online?
Yes, hi, I'm here.
Okay, you want to talk about the plant sale?
Yeah, I just think it went absolutely fantastically. We're hoping to partner again with Historic Columbia if they are having a spring sale. If not, we'll figure something out. You guys are welcome to email me suggestions for like good places to do it. You can do it as like as MNPS plant sale. But yeah, I was just so proud of everyone. You know, committee members really scraped it together. We kind of started a little bit late, but now that we started a little bit late, but we were just blown away by the success of all the people that came and how much we managed to sell. So we can start putting money towards other projects, field trips and stuff. So yeah, it was just a, by and large, absolute success. We're very happy with it. So yeah, if you have any suggestions, plants you'd like to see next time, I'll see if I can find them at some nurseries and stuff. And just message me any suggestions or requests at the plant sale email account. Is there anything else that I should mention?
No, I think that's good. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay,
Thank you.
Phil, you want to tell us about how rich we are now?
Yeah, we're flush. Just to give you a quick update, apparently the state treasurer had some health issues, and the state president had to take over the duties. And what they had to do is hire an accountant to look at what are all the funds that are available for every one of the chapters. There's still, that work is still in progress. So I can't give you an exact accounting of what we have for our chapter, but I can tell you, based on 3 events that we have, what we know we can spend right now. So first one was when I took over this role as treasurer from Marigold Wilson. There was $200 in a cash box, and that was by no means what we had available to us, but that's all we had as far as cash. The second event was our plant sale, and I'll get into a little more details on that. But the bottom line basically was $4,500 that we made from the plant sale after taking off all the expenses. And then the third thing is we do have an ongoing revenue stream of membership dues. 60% of it goes to the state, and the chapters get 40% of that. So if we added up what those numbers are right now, we have basically about $6,100. Well, I'll just say we have about $5,850 available to us. So that's what we know we can spend, but there's probably several other thousands of dollars that are actually in our account that we just don't know how much it is. And that would be based on the revenue from memberships the last few years. So in talking with Katie, our state president, it should be a few more months, and they should have that accounting done, and then we'll know exactly what we have available to us. Just to talk a little bit about the plant sale that Megan talked about, we spent, we took in through cash, check, and credit $9,223. We had expenses of $4,682. So our net profit was $4,540, which is pretty good for none of us having ever done this before. And I can only get better and stronger each time that we do this. Some interesting things as far as transactions. We had, it was a 2-day sale, so it was on October 29th and 30th. The volunteers were able to come in early on the night that we set up, which was on the 28th. But in total, for those 2 days, we had 180 transactions. And out of that was 871 plants that were sold. Bill was directly involved in trying to get T-shirts for us at the state level, but went ahead and got T-shirts for to be sold at the plant sale. So there was a total of 47 T-shirts sold and 13 stickers, and we actually increased our membership almost 10%. We had 7 new members apply. So all in all, the plant sale wasn't just about making some money, but it was really some friendships on the committee, making a new contact at the Robert Mills house, and then of course making money, but selling T-shirts and stickers and things like that maybe we hadn't thought of doing, or other chapters may not be doing as well. So we hope that you all want to volunteer and become a member. We actually all had a blast. It was a little stressful, but all in all, it was a lot of fun, and I think everybody learned a lot.
Yep. And
So-
Phil has done a great job as treasurer getting things organized, and he did a super job on the plant sale, getting the square devices and coming up with a way to keep track of the sales and the money. So it was good that the treasurer was on our committee. Thank you, everybody. So the nominating committee put forth a slate, and we received no other nominations. So it's December 1st, our nominated slate was officially approved. And so since the board has done so well, we pretty much kept the board intact except for the president. So Bob Askins will be the new president. Hollis Beach is going to continue to be vice president. Betsy Russell will continue to be secretary. Joe Cerulli will be treasurer. Those are the only officers we have. So now that's our new board. Bob, you're president now, and as program person, you can take it away.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I'll tell you, I was a little bit of a reluctant candidate, but, and part of the reason was because there were some very big shoes to be filled, as most of you are all aware. So I don't know that I will, that I'm up to being another Bill, but I will do my best with all of your help to keep the doors open and the lights on. And carry this thing forward. I'm very excited tonight to have two of our own members, Trish, Jerman, and Valerie Marcil, who are also, like as I am, members of the Gill Creek Watershed Association. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you both just came off the board of that organization. Is that right? Yeah, and I don't know if you're all familiar with Gill Creek. If not, you're in luck because you're going to be a lot more familiar with it after tonight. But it is a real, it's a tremendous resource here in the Midlands area in Columbia. I have spent lots of time myself there, just walking the creek, exploring, photographing birds and plants, and you might see some evidence of all the things that are going out there. There's some interesting developments going on in that area, and so I think that's what Trish and Valerie are going to talk to us about tonight. So I'm going to shut up now and turn it over to you guys. If you want to, are you going to share your screen, Trish or Valerie? One?
I'm going to share mine.
Okay, take it away.
Let's see if I can get rid of everything else behind. Okay. Valerie and I both have just rolled off the board of the Gills Creek Watershed Association. We are both past presidents, and I realized with a start tonight that I wasn't sure that I had renewed my membership. So I did that during the business meeting, and I can say with certainty what Bob said with less knowledge, that yes, I am a member and I believe Valerie is as well. Let's get sort of oriented. Where are we talking about? The Timberlane project is where this red arrow is. It sort of sticks out into an area that appears undeveloped. For anybody who's not familiar with Columbia, it's close to Owensfield Airport. It's across Gills Creek from the Hamptons, the various developments over there. And when you look at the Google satellite, you see what I irreverently call a big green blob. Again, the red arrow is pointing to the Timberlane area. But this big green blob, Valerie was the first one to realize that it's got the potential to be a tremendous urban oasis, stretching from Divine Street all the way down to the Congaree River. A lot of it is in some sort of protected status at the moment. It needs to be more strongly protected for sure, but there are things like the City of Columbia's sewer line right of way, which keeps it from being developed. Timberlane is a tremendous opportunity. The area is so rich in birds and critters and big heron rookery. And to me, what's so important about it is it creates a pathway for critters to move from areas of Columbia that are pretty developed down toward Congaree River where it's less developed. And those corridors are very important for wildlife, migratory birds, that sort of thing. So we see this as we see the Timberlane project as a first step toward a much larger protection of an urban oasis. The reason that we're even talking about Timberlane is because of the 2015 flood. And we realized that we don't have very good pictures of what happened on Timberlane during the flood. And upon reflection, that's probably because nobody could get there. This is the uphill end of Timberlane, houses that made it through the flood and are still standing. The other houses are down there where you can see the white truck. Timberlane runs parallel to the creek down there, and those houses were completely inundated and left uninhabitable. And perhaps, I won't say saddest of all, it was very unnerving to go back as late as 2020. I think this picture was 2020 or maybe late 2019, and see evidence of people's lives scattered in the woods. This is some sort of Christmas decoration that got washed up high into a tree, and you could just see it sort of slowly disintegrating over time. And it was a constant reminder that these were people's lives that totally were upended. So what we are hoping for is to get something good out of that horrific upending of lives. This is what it looked like after the water receded. The houses were all condemned. They were boarded up. They had big white X's painted on the doors. This picture on the bottom is the Agape, I think it was a senior center. It's the only non-residential property and the only property that was actually on the creek side of Gills Creek, but you can see it really took a hit down there. Those properties are now all in public ownership through FEMA buyouts from both the state and this, from both the county and the city. Most all of those properties are in public hands, and we'll talk a little bit about the properties that aren't. However, it's really, really important to remember that flooding is an ongoing issue. This picture on the left, my son sent it to me on a dog walk when he discovered he couldn't walk down the street as he had planned. He said the turtle that was swimming in the middle of the street as if it were a pond was 6 or 7 inches long. If you saw this picture on the right, you would probably think it was a pond edge until you saw this picture at the bottom and realized, no, that's the road. So flooding is a continuing problem there, and it's pretty obvious that this land wants to be reclaimed by nature. As they say, sometimes crisis leads to opportunity. Several years ago now, I guess, Richland County came to Gills Creek Watershed Association and asked if we would help them with replanting trees on the property. And we worked on that a bit. There were personnel changes, various things happened, and that sort of got shelved. And in the meantime, we were able to apply for a grant from the Central Carolina Community Foundation through their Connected Communities program to do a planning exercise, a visioning exercise, to work with the people who live in the immediate vicinity and within, say, a mile radius or so, figure out what they would like to see happen with that property, and then work with other stakeholders to find the right mix of what's good for the locals and what's good for people who want to take advantage of this now public property. The current status of the property down there, I got a little cute with numbers here, I admit. There is one house that is currently standing behind this gentleman. It is in county hands right now, waiting for demolition. And that was able to happen because of Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union, which owned the house. They worked very closely with Gills Creek Watershed Association to find a way to not have it go into private hands and continue to be used as a dwelling, but to get it into the FEMA buyout program. And that's the president of that bank receiving our Watershed Wonder Award this past year. We have had 2 grants focused on improvement in the area. Excuse me. One was the Connected Communities grant that I just mentioned. The other, because litter is such a problem down there, we've installed a litter camera through a grant from Palmetto Pride. We don't talk about it very much because apparently if you talk about a litter camera, people will go someplace else to dump their litter, but it is there. There are 3 properties that are still in private hands, 2 houses and 1 vacant lot in between them. The county is working hard to get those properties bought out. The woman who owns them, and we only know this because my son ran into her while he was down there walking his dog, told him that she was going to make an assisted living facility for veterans. I believe what she said. She will have to raise the houses on stilts, and as you saw from the state of the road, that's kind of a dicey business to put a vulnerable population on a road that has big turtles swimming in it. But Anyway, we're keeping our fingers crossed on that. Did someone have a question? Or was that just a laugh of support? 42 bird species. We had a bird walk with Jay Keck from the South Carolina Wildlife Federation, sort of toward the tail end of migration season, and he was able to identify 42 bird species. Most of us on that trip couldn't have identified nearly as many as he did, but it was pretty spectacular, and he was jumping up and down with how many birds there were. And at the end of it, he texted a friend and said, "You've got to get down here. This is fabulous." The thing that absolutely blew me away was a yellow-billed cuckoo, which I've only seen once over in the PD in a very wild area. And there it was on Edmund Drive, right at the end of Timberlane. We have an unknown number of natives and an unknown number of invasives and remnant landscaping plants. You can see the yellow iris have started to invade the wetlands over across the street on Timberlane. And those two things are items that we want to talk to you guys more about. This is what's happening. Nature is reclaiming that property. This stretch here of the road is the area where the boarded up houses used to be. Great place. Lots of people walk their dogs down there. This is a picture from the first of our two bird walks down there. And I think that's Bob with the spotting scope. Is that you, Bob? Bob is muted. And over here on the left, either that or he's abandoned us. Over here on the left is an example of the litter that we're concerned about. Those seem to be remnants from somebody taking apart a restaurant and just dumped it down there. So we're hopeful that we can bring a stop to that. I want to just run through some of the really appealing parts about this. One of the most dramatic wildlife sightings or habitat areas is this heron rookery that's people have known about for a number of years, since before the flood. All these bird pictures are Bob's, and he is a wizard with a camera. If you go down, if you like birds, if you go down Edmund Road to where it intersects Timberlane, pull over and park with a good pair of binoculars in the spring, you can look straight toward the creek, and I've counted 20, 25 nests there, and usually toward the end of the day, you'll see them kind of paired up 2 by 2 standing on the nests, as Bob's picture shows. Most times when I'm down there, if you're quiet, you will see some kind of wading bird, great blues, egrets, lots of raptors. This is a red-tailed hawk. Lots of migrants. This is an indigo bunting, a rose-breasted grosbeak, and a golden-crowned kinglet. I think, Bob, I've got that right.
That's right.
Okay, good. And then there are the regular birds that hang out all the time, the chickadees and cardinals, the blackbirds. I love this picture. Pileated woodpecker. I'm not sure that we all would consider that a backyard bird, but they're around, so we'll count them as residents. Lots of amphibians in the spring. You almost always see frogs and toads hanging out. This is a partial skull of a deer, perhaps brought down by a coyote, which residents say they have seen coyotes and foxes, and of course opossums and raccoons and so on and so forth. And then the plants, which is what you all are here for. There are a lot of natives and a lot of invasives, and Valerie and I have said to each other, we know just enough to be a little bit dangerous, but not enough to be useful. We recognize lizard's tail and we recognize jewelweed and the wild edgeratum, but I don't know that either one of us knows what the thing in the middle is. And if anybody does know, do tell. And there are just a lot of interesting little things. And what we would love to do is to be able to catalog them a little bit better, get a good list of the interesting natives that are in there. And if there's anything that is really special that needs to be protected, we would love to have some help with that. These are pictures that John Grego took. I think probably many of you know him. He's been president of Friends of the Congaree for a long time, and he too is a wizard with a camera. Water lilies, of course, and our good friend Smilax, and water primrose here. These are just some shots of He started to say what it looks like when you step off the road and go into the wetlands. Since I have never done that, I can't vouch for it, but John has, and he said it was pretty rough, but it's beautiful in there. It's a little tricky to navigate, which we know because at one point, our staff and a half decided they would take kayaks down the main channel of Gills Creek, and apparently they got off the main channel and got stuck in mud. And they had put a car someplace, but they ended up wading out maybe half a mile around Timberlane and had to call an Uber. They were, of course, covered in mud from bottom to top and looking pretty bedraggled. And this Uber driver pulled up, saw these two mud people, and they counted themselves lucky that he didn't just drive away. But if you know where you're going, it's lovely. This is a Sweet Spire. John called this a Sweet Spire Island. And just another shot of some of the side channels back in there. So now let's switch gears and talk a little bit about the planning process. With the city, the Connected Communities grant, we were able to hire a consulting firm that does a lot of visioning and planning work like this around the country, MKSK. So we've been working with people from the county, people from the city, people from Gills Creek and MKSK. And the first thing that that we wanted to do was another survey. The county has done actually 2 surveys of people who are living close by Timberlane. This is a little bit broader in terms of its questions and in terms of what it asks, but I think the answers are pretty consistent with what's been said before. People want to have some paths and trails through there, which may include the road itself. They want to see ecological restoration, and they want the opportunity to view nature viewing. And so that's what we're working toward. We've got a little bit of a problem in that our goal was to really engage people who live right around there. And as you can see, not a lot of our respondents are residents of the immediate area. And actually not even a huge number visit the Timberlane area, but a good many do visit Gills Creek. So if you know of people who are in the South Beltline area, in the Rosewood area, we have a link to an event that's coming up next week that we would love to have you publicize to them. The second step of our process with MKSK is what has turned into a virtual open house, or charrette, depending on how you define charrette. It was going to be last week. People were going to come in and look at potential designs on boards and do the, take the sticky star or the sticky circle and put it on the designs you like the best. So MKSK has a platform that they use that allows that to be done virtually, which is good. So that's what we're going to do. And the third step is to create an advisory group of residents and stakeholders. And we've already asked Bob to be one of the stakeholders because of his role in the Rosewood Nature Trail, because he lives in Rosewood, and because of his new role with the Native Plant Society. So he kind of wears 3 hats there, and we're grateful that he's willing to wear them for us. This is the invitation for that event, which is next Thursday, beginning at 5:30. It will be online. And I think the easiest way to sign up for it is to scan this code, which you can do right now while you're sitting in the comfort of your living room or whatever. If you hold your phone up to the QR code, I had to move mine in and out a little bit to get the right spot for the website to pop up, but it will eventually pop up and you can register if you're interested in participating. And the reason for pre-registration is if we have a lot of registrants, we'll have to do it as a webinar format, but if we don't have a huge number, we'll do it as a regular Zoom meeting, and there can be a little bit more spontaneous conversation. And I can come back to this if people need me to. What Bob actually asked us to talk about is how the Native Plant Society could get involved in what's going on down in Timberlane. So the first and most immediate thing is to share information about the event with people in the Rosewood and South Beltline area, because we're really underrepresented there. And I can send a flyer about the event out to the mailing list. So if you want to send it on to somebody that way, it'll maybe be a little bit easier. I mentioned that there's a lot of interesting plants and we don't know which are natives to be cherished and which are invasives that need to be yanked. Obviously, we know a good many of them. There's a bunch of Phragmites down there. There's obviously privet there. There's Iliagnus there. There's Wisteria there, the usual suspects, but there are probably a bunch of other things that need to come out. So having people who know what they're doing come down, walk through, and just talk about what's there would be fabulous. Let us build up a list. We're going to need some help in removing or at least keeping the invasives at bay, starting probably with the Phragmites. We may need some help in planting once the design is complete. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out. I don't think the county is either. They will be looking for funding, and it may be that they would welcome a lot of help in putting some new plants in the ground, so we can let you know if it looks like that is necessary. And perhaps, maybe in my mind, the absolute most important thing that anybody can do, other than letting people in the South Beltline area know about the open house next week, is make sure that everybody understands floodplains got to be floodplains, and they need to have plants, preferably native plants, to absorb the water, to manage the water, let it flow in and out as the rains come and go, release it slowly. I think people just don't know how important a good vegetated floodplain is, and that's something that we need all the help we can get to spread the word about. And then finally, as we move beyond Timberlane and start looking more at the Urban Oasis, all the support we can get for initiatives that will help get some of these properties in permanent protection and take care of them will be very welcome, and we'll keep you posted on that, unless you tell us not to. And that's it. Here's our contact. This was billed as the two of us doing it. I think Bob asked after Valerie had left town for 5 weeks or so, which should be a lesson to everybody that it's dangerous to leave town because your friends will rope you into stuff. But because she was helping her daughter with a brand new baby, she sent me lots and lots of pictures, but she was not back in town until last week. So that's why she's been quiet, but she will, I'm sure, leap in to answer questions if anybody has any. I'm going to leave that up on the screen a little bit if anybody wants to capture that.
Hey, Trish, is there a map of the area?
The map, yeah, well, yeah, there are. Do I have it here? No, the best that we've got is that, or from the very far away to the very close up, this, which is the individual parcels that are now FEMA buyout properties that are in public ownership.
That image actually shows connected properties. So each of those little chunks has several properties within them. You can see along Timberlane, which is to the right along the creek there, there's that little gap. That's where the 3 properties are that have not been bought out. Yeah, back right there. Yeah. Those are but this is what we're working with to try to create a community park of sorts and get input on right now.
And that's a little misleading because it doesn't show as much of the city properties as there are. And there are a couple of properties up on Glen Haven that the community has actually stepped in and made it sort of a tiny little pocket park. Kids play soccer there and someone's put a bench in and they've got a dog poop bag dispenser and things like that. So that may well end up being remaining that way.
Trish and Valerie, how do the community members feel, especially like the folks at the corner of Timberlane, about a proposed naturalized areas in this? I'm sure anything's better than what it is now, but what's the thinking in the community?
That's an interesting question, and Valerie and I debated how much to talk about that. So I'm some respects, I'm glad you brought that up. The people who live right around there are very much in favor of naturalizing it and then leaving it alone. And I think they would prefer not to have outside people come through. I think as would we all. I mean, to be fair, if we had a fabulous natural area in our backyard, we might not want to have a whole lot of people traipsing through. They have made some very useful suggestions that if we're able to get these 3 properties into public ownership and close the road, which DOT would very much like to do, perhaps we could put some bollards on it, which would keep random traffic from going down the road, but the bollards could be removed to let City of Columbia in to deal with their right of way and that sort of thing. We've talked about maybe having a couple of parking spaces down here at the Edmond Road end of the property so that people could park here and walk back, or, even do the full loop. But I think there will be a little bit of give and take as we work through what the public is owed, because these are in public ownership and they were paid for through FEMA funds, which means all the citizens of the United States paid for them, versus the privacy of the people who live there.
Yeah, and I might add that this is a pretty unique area in terms of buyouts in Columbia, because there are so many properties connected that got bought out. The buyout program is voluntary. So each of those property owners had to agree to a buyout. In other parts of Columbia that got flooded, people didn't want to wait for a FEMA buyout. They sold their houses or their property at discounts, and big houses on stilts ended up getting built in place of what had been there, because when a house is substantially destroyed, as all of these properties on Timberlane were, the laws and regulations disallow renovating or rebuilding at ground level. A house or structure has to be elevated certain amount above the 100-year floodplain, and in this case it's about 9 or 10 feet above the ground. So anyway, my point really that I'm trying to make is that we have a very unique opportunity here, and it's not only is it a really good collection of floodplain properties, but it's also connected to a wonderful floodplain that will benefit from having some extra space to spread.
Is the flooding that the photo you showed of the street, and I've seen it halfway flooded, did that used to happen before the 2015 flood? Was that already encroaching, or is that reflect a change that you're seeing in the floodplain itself?
I do not know the answer to that question.
Well, I sort of do, because I used to bike down there a lot. I was aware of this area as a really lovely area before the flood, and it was wet some of the time. Now, I didn't go down like on a daily or even weekly basis, so I'm not, I wasn't as informed then about it as I am now. But sometimes I would see water creeping into the road off the Gills Creek side, and occasionally I would see more substantial flood creep, but it seems to be happening. It seems to be almost constant now. And I don't know if that's a change in climate, water table. Some people have suggested that there is blockage as a result of the flood downstream from this area that's causing the flooding to spread more. I'm not sure. I probably shouldn't even say that because I'm not knowledgeable enough to confirm that, but I'm just throwing that out. As I think there there's some kind of factor that has caused more flooding now than there used to be. People used to live there and they would drive back and forth. I don't think if people lived there today, they would be able to get in and out of that area on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, there are lots of days when I've started to go down there and decided that I wouldn't.
Yeah. I do know that it's, as Trish has shown in this slideshow, just a marvelous natural area that not only has all the great wildlife and provides a corridor for wildlife, but it's just full of all kinds of plants. And we know that there are many invasive plants that need to come out or that would be good to get out, but there are also many wonderful natives as well. So we really are hoping that the Midlands group of the Native Plant Society can help in improving the balance down there, making it more
even making sure that we know which side of the scale each plant belongs on.
Yeah.
I have a question about that. When are you talking about identifying plants that are on the property side where the homes will be demolished, or and it's been a while since I've been down there. I know toward the end where there's maybe where the senior center was. I mean, are you also looking at going into the area on the creek side of the road? Like where do you want to, how big is the area to look at plants, and what kind of properties are you looking at?
I would think we would start on the creek side because that's closer to the natural biota, wouldn't you think, Valerie? I mean, a lot of those pictures that you took were on the creek side, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah, some of them were, and some of them were on the other side. I think with this plan that we have coming up, we may end up focusing on that area first, just because it's a project in front of us. But honestly, anything that anybody wants to help with is good. That the creek side is, it's just hard to even think of how we'll accomplish getting rid of all the invasives in there. It's so immense, and vast. There is, for example, a huge amount of, what is it, Trish? Arrowhead? Not arrowhead. What's the plant that John identified? In the water, basically, in the flooded areas, large leaves.
Yeah, almost like an elephant ear, but not.
Yeah, I think it may be. Yeah.
And that
Anyway.
could well be something that washed out of people's yards during the flood. I mean, probably an awful lot of stuff got into the wetlands.
Yeah.
Going back to the question, Valerie, I would kind of think that for some sort of an identification process, maybe the first place we'd look is where the Agape Center was, because it's a fairly broad area going toward the creek. It's a little more accessible, and it's got a good many plants that you and I looked at it and shook our heads and said, interesting, wonder what that is. So selfishly, that might be a place to start.
Okay. Well, I can say that there are, partly because these were residences on that side of Timberlane. There are lots of things that were obviously planted there, but there are some wonderful native trees in the area. I was down there the other day. I saw at least one large, healthy bald cypress. There's lots of white oak, lots of cedar, lots of sycamore. But as they said, there's also lots and lots of invasives. So privet, I think, was probably the one that's most obvious, and Chinese tallow and golden bamboo is running pretty wild in that area. So there's a lot of there's going to be a lot of work for someone to do to get
Actually,
invasives out.
Bob, you just gave another good answer to the question. And I had forgotten about this. At one point, MKSK was talking about a tree survey and I don't know, diameter, DBH and that sort of thing. It was determined that that was more than was necessary. However, having people walk through and identify really good native trees that shouldn't be messed with and probably should be labeled just for the sake of edifying anybody who walks through there. That's another really good project that would be lovely to have done.
Yeah. One other great thing about this area is because it's been flooded, there's lots of snags and therefore lots of cavities for birds that take advantage of cavities. That's one reason that you see pileated woodpeckers down there. I have seen just about every woodpecker that occurs in South Carolina, with the exception of the red cockaded. I've seen just about every other woodpecker in that area. Lots of bluebirds who love those cavities. Anyway, so if you like birds, it's the place to go around here. And as I said, just tremendous, tremendous variety of plants and enormous potential. I'm so excited about the work that you have, that Gills Creek has done, and the potential for this area as as a resource for the community.
Well, we are too. We're kind of wrapped up in the down in the weeds mess of it right now. But when you step back, it really does have enormous potential. And speaking of birds, Jake Heck said that it would not surprise him to find a prothonotary warbler in there. As they
I
are
wouldn't
in
be surprised at
Korea,
all. Wouldn't be surprised at all.
fun thought.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Do we have other questions for Trish and Valerie?
I have a comment, if that's okay.
Sure.
Sure. Well, I don't know. It depends. Is it going to be impertinent?
Hopefully it's a good comment. I live right up the street, actually, on the top of the hill, excuse me, on the top of Tall Pine Circle. So it's the second house up, basically, from all the houses that have been flooded out. So I guess what my comment would be, if anyone's going down there and wants to point out things that I could take out in my time that I go down there, because I usually walk down there 2-3 times a day. I would be more than happy to start on that trail of getting rid of invasives and that sort of thing.
And Andrew, do you regularly see neighbors on Tall Pines that you think might be interested in this? We really have been trying hard to reach out to the immediate neighbors. And we could get you a handful of flyers about the event next week if you see people, if you're out walking about. Valerie and I were going to go and distribute some over the weekend, but a second shot is always a good thing.
Yeah, sure. Anybody I see around there, I usually talk to. I was down there picking up a whole load of trash this afternoon, actually.
I'm sorry.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful that you're doing that. I'm sorry there's trash, but we keep trying to help with that situation. But I think some bollards down there will make a big difference if we can move in that direction. But to answer your question, yeah, I think it is county property, mostly, and some city property. We maybe need to get some kind of permission first. I don't know. I hate to say just go ahead and start ripping out plants, which I would like to do myself. But we'll talk about that and get back with you, Andrew. It's a wonderful offer, and we'd be happy to
that would be great.
Help get that started.
Yeah, there's when you, Andrew, you're aware of this, I'm sure, but for the rest of you, when you get down there and see it, it's going to be a very large project. So I'm hoping that the county or the city will be able to find or provide some assistance in removing some of that material once it's identified as what the good guys are and the bad guys, so to speak.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Other questions?
thanks
for
so
our
much
presenters? I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say thank you so much for letting us come talk about this project, which is something of a passion project for us. And we hope we can engage other people in feeling the same.
Well, we appreciate your time and energy, and especially appreciate all the work that you've been doing for the betterment of the community and our watershed. It all starts with water, right? Okay. If there are no other questions, we'll wrap up the presentation portion of the meeting. But before we move on to anything else, I think we might have failed to mention one very important bit of recognition when we were singing Bill's praises earlier. Our president received a special recognition this year. Don, would you like to talk about that?
Sure. I should have done it earlier. But as Bill started the meeting, if we could just say everything that he said in third person, we understand why we got the 2021 Volunteer of the Year for the chapter. This was announced at the state symposium a couple months ago, but for folks who didn't attend that virtual event, Bill is our Volunteer of the Year for 2021. And there'll be some sort of award to recognize that, but that'll be forthcoming. We haven't quite settled on what it is yet. So congratulations, Bill. You deserve it.
Well, thank you.
Hear, hear.
I still think it was a team effort, but thank you.
Yeah, as you heard, Bill almost single-handedly kept this organization going, kind of breathed life into it again. So he was certainly well deserving of that award. And Bill, I'm so happy that we finally had a plant sale, because as long as I've known you, you've been talking about having a plant sale. So I'm glad that dream came to fruition.
Yeah, how did you convince us all to do that, Bill?
I was supposed to be plant sale chair 2 years ago, but we couldn't get a president. And I didn't want to do both. So luckily, when Megan joined, she volunteered. And we had some great people who volunteered to join her committee. And we just worked well. And with working together, it wasn't too much work on any one person, I don't think.
And we really were lucky that Megan volunteered to chair it, because a number of us said, oh, I'd be willing to help, but I don't want to be in charge. and Megan volunteered to be in charge. So we really owe her a huge debt of gratitude.
Hear, hear.
And it was kind of hard for her because she just got a new job.
Yeah.
So from having a whole lot of time, not to have a lot of time, and Phil convinced her that she needed to delegate, which is the key to a good president or a chairperson. Delegate. It worked.
And I think the other thing that was difficult for her was she's pretty much right out of school, and she was dealing with a bunch of crotchety old retired people. And it must be really difficult to tell people your grandparents' age, no, do this, don't do that.
No, I'm not sure. Is Megan still on this chat? I don't know if she's hearing all these comments, but I'll have to say again, make sure she knows.
Yeah.
And Rita's on, and Rita was instrumental helping Megan as well. So thank you, Rita.
Yeah, with Rita and Holly, and they're both from Aiken. So they had to come a long way. We didn't have Zoom meetings. It was great that the whole chapter contributed. Everyone did something.
And Historic Columbia was a huge help. That's where it was held, of course, and we it just was a wonderful, wonderful partnership, and they did so much to make it a success for us. So
And I hope our contribution will be considered a bribe to let us come back in the spring.
I haven't heard from them yet, but I'm hoping to soon. That maybe they'll be willing to partner again.
And I think, you know, Lynn might as well have been a member of the committee, but Lynn did so much to publicize and get the word out that she deserves huge thanks too, because it would not have been nearly as successful as it was without Lynn's efforts.
That's very nice, but you got to have something good to say. So thanks for making it all so worthwhile and really wonderful.
Well, and while we're passing out thank yous, I'd like to thank Valerie Moore and the Richland County Master Gardeners Association for once again allowing us to use their Zoom account. I think the board has voted to acquire an account of our own, so we won't need to impose on you. But thank you so much throughout this last year, especially when this has been the only way that we could meet. It has really been a lifesaver and has helped us continue to you know, have some sort of activity and communicate when we weren't able to do so in person. We're hoping that we will be able to return to normal operations sometime, but for the time being, we'll probably continue to meet this way. We have a board meeting, I think this February 10th, and our next scheduled program meeting will be March 10th, the second Thursday of March. We will be in touch to let you know what is coming for presentations. And in the meantime, if you will let us know, let the board know about any concerns you have, any interest that you have, things that you would like to see us address, please reach out. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Hearing nothing, I will wish you all a very good night and happy gardening.
Thank you, Valerie and Trish.
Thank
and thank
you.
you,
Yeah.
Valerie
Thank
Moore.
you.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Good meeting.
Thanks.
Thank you.